All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and this is going to be the week in comics and comic book news with a cool down drawing sesh to talk about media at the end. It's going to be a good show. There's a good amount of news tonight. I think it's pretty focused. I think we'll have an interesting time talking about the comics that came out this week. I hate it when I say damn those wiggle words. The John Byrne X-Men Elsewhen book came out. I was just adjusting the slipcase on that. This thing's already going for quite a bit on the secondary market. It's like, folks, it'll get reprinted. But anyway, Marvel ended its Ultimate Universe, so I've definitely got some things to talk about there. And a few other interesting comics that crossed our paths this week. The Supergirl movie came out. I don't know about you folks. I got a free copy of issue 1 with a new Bilka Sevely cover, which I thought was pretty cool. I think that this is the kind of thing that comic book companies should always do when they have a comic book movie release. And there's even ads, for the actual comics, calls to action. Like, that's just good marketing in my book. Anyway, so what do we have here? Just a bunch of nice people saying nice things like that. I've got a nice shirt. Thank you. We are going to have a good time tonight. We're going to disappoint my friend Dave, who's here to apparently see me talk about Absolute Turok. That won't happen. So at least one person disappointed. Check off the list. I will also disappoint some people because I've got coffee, so I had to sing my song. Anyway, I don't think that there's really any reason to do any preamble. Let's just get right into the news because I think that's what most folks are here for. I'm just going to throw up a little banner ticker here so that you can all follow along on where we are in the show. And with that said, let's get to the news of the week.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
Hey, can you believe this thing? Anyway, it is going to be a good show. This is pretty big news, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's start with what seems to be the most controversial thing somehow. And when I say controversial, take that with a grain of salt. It's not that important. But Supergirl came out, and I think it's fair to say that the reactions are all over the place. Look, I'll just give you my real quick opinion because I did see it. I liked it. I didn't love it. It isn't better than, say, Superman, but I had a good time. I didn't think that there were any inherent big flaws with it. It wasn't perfect at all, but, I'd probably give it something like maybe a 7 out of 10. I liked it. I had a good time. I went with a bunch of friends. I went in with low expectations because of what I'm about to talk about, which were some of the reviews, mixed. I liked it. I'll talk a little bit more about it at the end of the show when I'm drawing, but I won't do any spoilers, so you don't need to worry about any of that. Yeah, the jokes weren't going over huge, so I kind of phased that out. It was a fun experiment for me. So, first of all, the critic score. The average on Rotten Tomatoes anyway, which isn't perfect. It just says that 54% of critics gave it a positive review. Pretty low, though. However, the audience score is 76. That's quite a gap. And that's with, some outspoken critics that are more like fan critics, kind of review bombing this thing. There's a lot of reviews out there. But that's quite a spread. That's quite a spread from what a lot of critics are saying versus what fans are getting out of it. Beyond that, I'll just say the weekend box office, not very impressive, to be honest. $68 million worldwide, $38 million of that came from here, but it is a $175 million budget. When you factor in that, like, you know, the studios don't get all of the money from the box office, they get a huge chunk in the first week, and then it slowly drops off. Plus, they have to spend marketing to advertise. Not great. The only caveat to that is we are in a very much new era of media where there's tremendous value to these movies on streaming, because this type of content, to really turn it into just pure business terms, it does get people to either sign up or renew their streaming memberships on places like HBO Max. It's not like they've got an exact formula, but if they keep putting stuff on there, they get a lot of money through those monthly subscriptions, you know? So the studios are sort of like, you know, if we get to sort of a break-even point, or even a little under break even in the movie theaters, we will ultimately turn a profit as soon as we can put it on a good streaming service that we control. So that is a huge difference from, like, you know, even 10 years ago. But anyway, it's weird. It's weird. I was a little surprised. I thought Supergirl would be popular enough that more people would check it out than this. That's not super impressive. I think adding Lobo was a fine choice because that probably does drum up a little bit more interest. He's not strictly necessary to this story, but he fit in a perfectly appropriate way. Reviews, I think, if there's any consensus, even the ones that complain, a lot of people that are reviewing it, even if they don't give it a perfect review, are shouting out Millie Alcock's performance. And I agree. She does a really convincing performance of this version of the character. You know, I believed in that character 100%. And the criticisms seem to be mostly on action scenes, which I didn't 100% agree with. That's probably why my review is higher. Anyway, no spoilers here. I'll just let you know that there is a difference in the ending. There's always going to be changes to adaptations, right? But there is a difference to the ending of the movie versus the ending of the comics that it's based on. There's quite a few differences, to be fair, but there is a different ending. And I've been reading some interviews by the screenwriter of the film, Anna Noguera. And I sincerely believe, this is just me, I sincerely believe she misinterpreted the final pages of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bill Evely and Matt Lopez. I really think she honestly completely misinterpreted it. And that's fine in some ways, but it is weird that no one else pushed back and were like, wait, you're saying that you're doing it this way because that's how you read the comic? Like that is not what happened in the comic. She got that. However, I'll mitigate that by saying one thing. Even though it's different, I think it works in this version of the film. I'm trying to say this without giving spoilers, but they do make several changes, including some background to the villain of the piece, Krem. And I think that the end of the movie is justified by what we see throughout the movie. But it is different from the comic. And I think that the writer sincerely just got it wrong. Tom King is not in this writer's room, but I think he and Anna have worked on something else, whether that's Mr. Miracle or that previous version of New Gods. I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure they have talked to each other. And Tom King said, like, this was not supposed to be ambiguous. It's anyway. So anyway, that is that. But I'll keep moving. Let's talk about Batman. So let me just do a little preamble here. I don't typically talk about rumors too much unless there's a little weight to them or it's interesting. But so this is a rumor, but it's a rumor on who will play Batman. we know that at some point soon, the DC studios will hire somebody to be Batman. A lot of comic book sites are already reporting this as fact, but it is a rumor, okay? It's a rumor, but it makes sense. Let's see. So it started with Canadian film critic. He does a YouTube show. I didn't put his name in there. John Campea is who I meant to put in here. Sorry, John Campea. He said that he heard from somebody that works at DC Studios that would be in the know that they have cast Batman, and it was somebody that he wouldn't have guessed. Okay. But then to follow up from that, the Hollywood gossip insider account, My Time to Shine Hello, replied, I've heard the same thing. It's Tom, just Tom. However, from there, a bunch of other sites interpreted that. Anybody recognize this guy? I would say it's unlikely. He's more or less an unknown. Probably even more of an unknown than David Corenswet, who I would say was relatively unknown when they cast him as Superman. But this guy is British actor, of course. Tom Brittney. He's 35 years old, so they're going obviously for a slightly older Batman this time around, if this is true. But he was supposedly one of the 3 people that auditioned to play, or the 3 finalists that they were considering to play Superman. It was David Corenswet, Tom Brittney, and somebody else that's like a name, but I cannot remember off the top of my head right now that name actor. Batman will be played by an AI rotoscoped Burt Reynolds, still with the mustache this time. They're not going to digitally erase it like in Justice League. I like that. Oscar-winning actress Margot Martindale. She's a great actress, actually. She's awesome. Oh, exactly. Thank you. You're right. It was Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult, who ended up becoming Lex Luthor, was actually also in the running to potentially be Superman. You're right. Thank you very much, Malik. But anyway, so yeah, this guy, Tom Brittney, has done a bunch of British TV shows and British movies. So nothing humongous that most of us would have seen yet. But supposedly that's the guy. So here's what's for sure. Clayface is DC's next live action film. That comes out the end of October, right around Halloween. And there has been persistent rumors that Batman will have a cameo of some sort in there to tie it all together, which would make a lot of sense because otherwise it's very sectioned off from everything else they're doing. So we'll see. Looking at the guy, I go, sure, right age, right credentials. Look at that jaw. Like, you cannot illustrate a jaw this perfect. So, cover this top up. Everybody pick up your fingers and put it over the top of his face and go, is that Batman? Sure. We'll see. Let's go ahead and talk about what's in the thumbnail. If you haven't heard, this is pretty big news. There was a film festival this past week. It's called the Annecy International Film Festival. And it was there that DC Studios and Warner Brothers Animation made an announcement together that they're making an adult-aimed animated series based on Absolute Batman. Initial response to this is that all of a sudden Absolute Batman has once again skyrocketed in value on places like eBay. So if you've got a first print of #1, I saw them going raw for literally $300. Pretty amazing for a book that isn't quite 2 years old. And has had 11 reprints now? I think I've got the count right on that. 11 reprints. There's a lot of interest and a lot of love for the Absolute universe. No question. Let's see. So, Absolute Batman writer Scott Snyder will be one of the executive producers and the showrunner. This is so close to that manga to anime pipeline that so far we've kind of only really had Invincible prove that can work in the American system. Once again, same people working on a different version. And what does it do? It's already feeding interest into the first version. It doesn't like diminish value or interest from the comics. It increases the interest in it. And also Nick Dragata, thank God, is a producer on the new animated show. So he'll have plenty of input. I was stunned to see this. And I was like, boy, does that make sense. I also quickly put on social media as soon as I saw this. Maybe we'll finally get an Absolute Batman logo t-shirt now that it's a cartoon. My friend West Coast Dave Vengers in the chat has been saying that from the beginning. Like, why, when you've got like the most popular comic right now, can you not get merchandise for this thing? It's crazy how slow DC can be on this one thing. It's the only thing Marvel is kind of doing right, is that you can still get t-shirts, comic book boxes, and action figures based on their latest versions of their characters and the art and the covers and stuff. Like, believe it or not, you cannot buy right now an official Absolute Batman logo or Absolute Batman artwork t-shirt. They don't exist yet. Crazy. That's crazy. That is money left on the table. That is a lot of money left on the table. Yeah. Absolute no-brainer. Thank you, EJ. Graffiti Designs did do a good job, and they kept things coming out. So anyway, that's pretty wild. Anyway, the show is apparently going to be done in CG. Fine. And it's going to follow the comics. If you haven't read them, the biggest difference is that this version of Bruce Wayne, beyond being an absolute brick shithouse, is he's a blue-collar worker. He's not a billionaire. There's a lot of little differences, but it positions him way more as an underdog. Still very smart, very, very capable, but he's trained himself in a very different way. He's got a very different background. The villains have a very different background. There's a lot more horror elements to it, but I love it. I've been enjoying the hell out of Absolute Batman. And I thought, why is it that I can pick up something like Absolute Batman and have a pretty darn good time every issue? And I guess it's just that it does continue to surprise me with its decisions. It's good. It's good storytelling and it's fun, but it isn't just meaningless action. Like, they are introducing character stuff, and it's always a bit of a surprise. And yet it fits with everything, feels cohesive. It's really working quite well. Yeah, there is an element of camp. Exactly right. Like, people will say it's grim and gritty, and I go, it's not grim and gritty the same way 80s and 90s comics were. It's got horror elements. It's got an underdog blue-collar guy, but he's also built so absurdly large, and the action can be so over the top. I think I've talked about the artist, Nick Dragata, in an episode on my other channel, where I think he's taking a lot of cues from how manga does storytelling. I'd like to hope that we're moving towards a new era of animation where there are decisions to focus on the most recent and the most popular comics and adapt them way more literally. I am always okay with some concessions, some changes, keep things fresh. But I also think that there's a literal proof of concept with how Japan has been doing it. And while we can't necessarily change our cultural impulses for how we read comics here overnight, right? Like, in Japan, people pick up disposable anthology magazines every week. That's very hard to get people here to shift to, and then like get the tankobon collected volumes of their favorite book. That's a slow process. We can't change the way people want to read comics overnight, but we can certainly adapt these things for film and cartoons and have it way closer together, both timing wise and following the story wise. What else? Just to be clear, they announced some other things too. They being DC Studios and Warner Brothers Animation. They're going to make an adult anime. They called it a version of Joker called Joker Laugh Riot, and so far untitled kids-focused project starring Crypto. That's also smart to me. Crypto is pretty popular. I think I've not heard anybody that said that they watched Supergirl or Superman and were really disappointed with Crypto. Crypto's great. Totally agree with you. Would love a very loyal Hellboy adaptation. And I'd take that animated too. Like, animated would be great for Hellboy. Animated would probably be better than live action. I've enjoyed some of that live action, but I think a really high-end animated Hellboy, that's the way to go. Let's see. Joker Laugh Riot will be directed by a guy named Yasuhiro Aoki, who has directed stuff like Steam Boy, as well as that last Lord of the Rings movie. It did get into theaters, War of the Rohirrim. The movie is going to... I called it movie. I meant animated series. Joker is going to sort of turn him into more of a vigilante, where Batman has been killed and Joker is hunting through the criminal underworld to figure out who did it, because he has no direction without his adversary. I feel like we've gotten some stories like that before, but not quite as to the point where Batman's literally dead. The Crypto one, I mean, keep in mind, again, this is aimed at kids. Sees Crypto tag along with a gang of misfit criminal wannabes who live down the block. As he follows them into misadventures and poorly laid plans, Crypto's pure nature slowly ends up redeeming them, whether they want it or not. Sure. Sure. You know, I know Steam Boy did well. I never saw that one. Anyway, yeah, I guess this guy Aoki worked on that one. I think as the director. There have been a few Hellboy animations. I'm talking about, I would love, you know, something, a prestige series on, we'll say HBO or something like that, or a full movie done with the same sort of production level as Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, or Into the Spider-Verse. I think Hellboy would really fit that kind of stylized, big scope. Oh, okay. Well, I trust your opinion, Beowulf, so I'll try to get around to it at some point. They did release that, and I think a lot of the reviews were saying, looks good, very repetitive play, and so I don't think the game did that well. I was definitely planning on getting it. I don't think it was like, they said that like the gameplay was bad, but it was very repetitive, so it wasn't super fun. Anyway, I think that is pretty big news. The idea of taking something as huge as Absolute Batman, and less than 2 years in, we're going to do an adaptation, and we're going to bring in the same artist and writer to oversee it. Oh, man. Absolutely, Black Sad would be fantastic. Black Sad would be popular. Black Sad, yeah. That's wild that they have. I mean, especially because the artist on that, like Juanjo Guardino, has an animation background. I believe he worked briefly with Disney. I want to say on maybe Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's hard to remember. Oh, okay. Dr. Schubill did play the Hellboy game, said it was kind of boring. That's too bad. It had a good look. It was very loyal to the Mignola aesthetic, which is probably not easy if you're not Mike Mignola himself. All right, what else we got for news? Hey, as long as I'm talking about one Batman animated thing, I guess I'll talk about the next one that dropped this week. This was also at the Annecy Film Festival. They premiered the first of what's going to be a trilogy adapting the Knightfall saga as an animated movie, like 3 animated movies to tell the, Knightfall, Night Quest, Night's End, if I'm remembering the order properly from, like 30 some years ago. So people there got to watch the whole movie. There's a trailer up online for it. It's, in simplest terms, the story where Bane breaks Batman's back. Batman gets replaced. Batman, fights his way back to fighting shape and takes back his role. So there's a couple interesting elements to this, though. The film, first of all, for actors, we've got Anson Mount, who I absolutely love as Captain Christopher Pike on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. God, I think he's made that like one of my favorite captains in Star Trek. He's Batman. You may have also seen him in comic book stuff as Black Bolt, but you didn't get to hear his voice there. Michael Mando, he's going to be Bane. I like that, actually, because Bane is technically a Latino character. So, yeah, get a Latino actor for him. I only just thought of that. And then Liev Schreiber's brother, Pablo, as Jean-Paul Valley, a.k.a. Azrael. Oh, really? Maybe I should check out Hell on Wheels. I know that got pretty good reviews. I never saw it, though. Oh, now you're talking my language. That is another comic book that would be fantastic as an animated one. And it would be kind of aimed at adults, or at least PG-13. This film is going to be, or has been, animated by a South Korean studio, Mir. They've done X-Men 97. I think a lot of people appreciated that. Legend of Korra. My Adventures with Superman. So pretty high quality animation. But visually, here's like a snapshot of it. Based on the covers that were done at the time by Kelly Jones. That's an interesting idea. Like really huge, muscly, dark shadows, huge pointy ears. Kelly Jones is obviously a very distinct visual artist, but he was doing the covers, not the interiors. So that was an interesting choice to me. But I don't disagree with it. It gives it something that stands out a little bit. Oh, it's R-rated, by the way, which I don't think is necessary, having read it, but okay, I guess like every other word out of Bane's mouth is just going to be, the F word. Not the bad one, the okay one. It's going to come to streaming. Don't know exactly which service or when yet. What do you think, folks? Anybody out there read this storyline? I certainly read it when it was coming out, but I'm older than a bunch of my audience, so I don't know. At the time, and for quite a while after, it was certainly a very popular storyline. But yeah, that's true. I guess they could have like extra violence. To be fair, I just did an episode about Norm Brayfogle, right? And they did create a lot of new villains during this time period that they could probably absolutely brutalize at some point too. Like how many people out there remember Tallyman, the tax collector villain? I think he's in there. Yeah, I was never a huge fan of Jean-Paul Valley either. I like the idea of it, though. I like the idea of it. It is very long, so that's why it could definitely be condensed and still work. That's not a bad choice either. Patrick Horvath has a background in film, obviously. Did the storyboards, not all of them, but it did a bunch of storyboards for Weapons. That was a pretty big hit last year. I hope it's good. It's interesting. I like the idea of going with a very different visual style. And I hope that means a credit and a payday for somebody like Kelly Jones. I hope. All right, let's talk some more Batman. Batman sells. So Batman, if you don't know, has not had Alfred, his butler, his, pseudo father figure, his confidant, his rock. He hasn't had him since 2019. 2019, he was killed by Bane. And to DC's credit, they haven't reversed that. which I think has carried some ongoing emotional weight especially for Nightwing and Bruce Wayne Batman. It's impressive that they kind of stuck to that. But the solicitations for Batman number 12 by Fraction and Jimenez indicate that there is a replacement on the way. He's finally going to have a Butler again. The solicitations specifically read, "The late Alfred Pennyworth provides a gift from beyond the grave with the arrival of a brilliant new ally to the Bat family at a time when it needs one most." Apparently, this new character is called Verity Pennyworth. So, don't know exactly what that family connection is, but Alfred has somebody in his family that he's sort of said, like, hey, one day my family's going to need you. Okay. As far as a character like this, in the past, Alfred has had a niece. In the pre-Crisis continuity, that was Daphne. She did not become Batman's butler, but there was Daphne. Obviously, in the Batman and Robin movie, instead of Barbara Gordon, they changed that to Alfred's niece. They called her Barbara Wilson. That was Alicia Silverstone's character. In the more modern-day comics, he's had a daughter, an estranged daughter, Julia. I believe that was Jerry Conway that co-created Julia. And then New 52 happened, and they changed her, I want to say, to a spy, but it was still his estranged daughter. But this character is named Verity, so it's none of those. It's none of those. Is that what we call a butler? No, I don't. I think women can be butlers in the modern day. We're not in 1912 England. Is it called what is a female butler called? Yeah, simply called a butler. Okay, so you were just making a joke. Sorry. They are still called a butler. I'm sorry to be naive there. I was like, is there a different name for it? Galfred Pennyworth. It's certainly going to add a different dynamic, right? She's a lady. Ooh, it's a lady. And she'll have, she's got a lot more youth. So she's going to have a very different background than Alfred. And she's not going to initially have that close familial bond that Alfred slowly gained. Maybe someday I've got to do an episode about Alfred, because Alfred went through a lot of different character iterations before what we recognize today as Alfred. Pre-Crisis, he started off as a total goofball joke character. He was always sort of bumbling around, maybe trying to be a detective himself sometimes. And then he slowly became more of a serious ally, an older gentleman. And then he actually died and came back as a supervillain. He was the supervillain called the Outsider for quite a while before DC rebooted things with Crisis. And then ever since Crisis, Alfred did start as, just a butler, but slowly the mythology built that he was the guy that raised Bruce when his parents died. That's a very, when you consider the whole history of Batman, that's a more relatively new idea. That's not something that was there from the beginning. So Alfred has a lot of interesting history to him. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't my favorite. Anyway, I just wanted to share that stuff. But believe it or not, we've even got more Batman news tonight. Like this stuff. Butt lady. Excuse me, Master Wayne. I will be your butt lady. Wait a minute. I just realized as I said that was almost, unintentionally, almost a good Matthew Berry impression. Funko. announced several new releases for San Diego Comic-Con. And it's going to include the first time some of these characters have had action figures. I don't know if maybe it's not fair to call them action figures. These things barely move, but they're figures. They're going to have all 3 of the main absolute heroes represented, but also 2 image characters, Radiant Black and Geiger. So those are all going to be San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, apparently, although kind of knowing a little bit about Funko, I'm sure they'll get a slight repaint and be released to everybody. I'm going to get to that, Dave. Don't get ahead of me. Junko slop. People don't love Funko like they used to. I will consider getting the Radiant Black one because I do like Radiant Black, and it's the first time he's had an action figure. Pretty limited supplies, though, so they're trying to create interest by doing limited runs. Yeah, I kind of agree. It's a decent interpretation, and I don't know. There will also be a bunch of new Batman pops at the convention, like Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, Batman Beyond. I don't know what else. And some of their newer things where they call them the comic book cover. It's like a reproduction of a famous cover, but with Funko Pop drawings and then the Funko Pop up front. Funko was in severe financial trouble last year. They literally, in their annual report, said that they had extreme concern about being an ongoing concern. In other words, they were worried that I think they had about $200 million of debt. And they had so much inventory that wasn't being sold that they literally sent tons and tons of it to landfills because it would cost them more to house that in their warehouses than to just write it off. But it seems, when I saw these new Funkos, I had to look it up, and it seems like they have shored things up to a large degree. They seem to be focusing on less overall releases. They still do lots of these sort of exclusives, but they do a little bit less than they used to, which was way too much. And they did restructure their debt. They still have that debt, but I guess it's not really coming due until next year. Gives them time to restructure. If they can sort of break even this year, and apparently their first quarter this year, they actually made a huge profit again. So anyway, look, I'm burned out on how similar and dead-eyed Funko Pops are in general. And at the same time, it's a big employer here in Washington State, actually. And, you know, if they could, I just think if you're going to make this many toys and you have like this much plastic and stuff, can you just add a little bit of articulation? Can you just move in that direction? I won't be surprised if they do soon. Let's see how these do. But I hadn't talked about Funko in quite a while. These were new. This was news, so I just thought it would be a little fun to talk about. Oh, yeah, those Nendoroids. I've never gotten any of those, but I see them at all the... if you will go into a mall, there's always like 3 Japanese import stores now. That seems to be the rule. And I always see those Nendoroids. Yeah. Yeah, all I want too is like a Batman, absolute Batman shirt. I will say it's not out yet. I did order, back before I even had the flood, I ordered the Hot Toys Absolute Batman. And I am kind of excited that that will eventually come out. Oh, they did try articulation. I didn't know that, Mike. Good design, terrible execution. That's a shame. Okay. Got to give you some funny stuff in here. Well, DC Comics has teamed up with the U.S. men's soccer team. And by the way, our soccer team is currently in the lead of Group D in the World Cup. Turkey is last. It's us. Who are the other two that are in there? Like, I don't think Turkey is going to catch up, but we've got like 6 points, and then the next two are both at 4 points. I forget the others in Group D, but you know, the people here in the Seattle area very excited right now about soccer, or as the rest of the world calls it, football. Very popular, but I'll tell you, everyone's disappointed because for nosebleed seats, it's still thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's ridiculously priced. Nobody here that's local can afford to get them. I did hear something about that. Love Weird Al's. Good for him. Good for him that he's on some covers and stuff. It's nothing specific. Chrissy just saw it, thought it looked kind of cool, retro 60s. It's not anything specific. It's nothing licensed. It's kind of cool. I'm not too into it, I'll be honest, but it's kind of cool that we're doing well. Oh, they won the group. I didn't realize. That's how up to date I am. I'm like always like a day or two behind on this stuff. But anyway, so DC Comics is teaming up with US Men's Soccer to make a comic called Justice League Heroes of the Pitch. Okay. It can be purchased at Dick's Sporting Goods. You know, you're always in there going, okay, I need some sweatbands, I need some overpriced shoes, and I need some comic books. Let's go to Dick's. No, you go to Dick's because you're like, oh, shoot, it's winter. I need, a ski mask. Where do you get a ski mask? I guess Dick's will have it. You can also get it at the U.S. Soccer Federation's online shop. It's $14.99. This is a regular size comic, folks. I guess they're just counting on soccer being so popular that people are willing to spend $15 for it. You can also get it digitally through the DC Universe app. 20-page story features Mongol invading Earth, and he challenges the U.S. men's soccer team because he says that they're the best. Sure. To a soccer match with his alien team for the fate of the planet. And the Justice League teams up, but no aliens are allowed to play with them. So Superman and Supergirl have to sit this one out. It is not a 50-page hardcover. It is a 20-page story for $15. What? Also, DC and the U.S. men's soccer team have collaborated with the Peace Collective. That's a Canadian clothing brand that donates some of their profits to charities like mental health and homelessness and stuff like that to make some merch. Okay, so we've got DC, we've got U.S. men's soccer. They're going to collaborate, and these clothes will give some money to charity. But the merch doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, this is one example. There's tons of stuff there. You're like, okay, a Joker jacket. It just says the Joker, the U.S. men's soccer team logo. And, oh, what's that price? $329? What? Who can afford that and wants it? I don't know. I really don't. You should definitely go to the Peace Collective and look at their merchandise. Some of it sort of makes sense. Like, they've taken a famous cover of like Superman with his rocket in the background and changed the rocket to a soccer ball. And I'm like, I guess that's a collaboration. And then other things are just like the Joker saying, "Why so serious?" And I go, what's that got to do with soccer? I don't know. I don't know. I need a ski mask, some rope, a taser, and a comic book so that I don't look suspicious, right? Where can I get that? You can get all your abduction materials. I mean, your sporting good materials at Dick's Sporting Goods. Apparently, you can buy a peace prize from FIFA, or at least guilt them into giving you one. Can you, like, if this jacket was $20, I might go, sure, why not? $329. That is not cheap. That is quite a bit. That is quite a bit. All right. Not quite Batman, but almost. Let's talk about this. My friends at the Marvelists podcast interviewed Frank Miller this week. Congratulations, Peter Melnick. That's quite a pull for a guest. And Frank Miller, to his credit, answered a couple questions about working for Marvel or DC. Yeah, it's all based on The Dark Knight, I know. Peter asked Frank Miller if he would ever return to Daredevil, and Miller replied, quote, "Oh, anything's possible. You know, anything's possible, but the circumstances would have to be right, and I'd have to have a damn good story to tell. Marvel, seeing as how you have next to no direction right now, maybe jump on that." Maybe jump on that. He was also asked what DC character he'd consider reinventing for the Absolute universe, to which Miller said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'd have to give that a good think. I've got to pick someone rather really unpopular. I don't like to run with the pack. I'd rather look around for someone that could use a rediscovery." Gotta admit, kind of like that idea. I don't need to see another Frank Miller Batman anymore. He kind of nailed it with year one. Don't need more. Who do you think Frank Miller could do a good job at for Absolute? Blue Beetle? Take somebody that's even got like Golden Age history? Let him run with something like that? That could be interesting. I just came up with that now, but you know what? I'd read a Frank Miller Absolute Blue Beetle. Who knows? Him writing Daredevil like The Dark Knight Returns would be interesting. Yeah. Beyond his great, initial run on Daredevil, culminating with Born Again, I love his origin, The Man Without Fear, that he did with John Romita Jr. It's some of my favorite John Romita Jr. art. Oh, man, absolutely. Somebody like Ragman, just take somebody and really dig into what that could mean. Yeah, who knows? No, I don't need more Frank Miller RoboCop. I don't need that. Although, you know what? Didn't love his movies. RoboCop 2 came out okay. RoboCop 3, trash. He says it's not him, but I read his Avatar version. I didn't really care for that much more. Avatar Press published his RoboCop 3, if I remember right. But RoboCop versus Terminator, if I'm remembering right, that was Frank Miller with Walt Simonson, right? That was actually pretty cool. I think it was Frank Miller that wrote that. I know it was Walt Simonson that drew it, and that was actually pretty cool. That would be an interesting one to talk about. Absolute Lady Cop. Oh my God, absolutely. Absolute Vixen, sure, but you know what? That should probably be given to some sort of prominent black creator. It should be. At least initially. The Question? Yeah, maybe he could do something interesting with that. I think when you go to some of those Golden and Silver Age characters that DC owns, an Absolute version could be pretty interesting. It was Miller and Simonson. I haven't thought about that book in quite a while. It's not bad. That could be fun to talk about. That could be really fun to talk about. Oh, by the way, as you can sort of see in this image, on July 13th, Frank Miller will be promoting his new biographical book with a talk in New York hosted by Scott Snyder. Scott, obviously the guy that's overseeing the Absolute universe. Maybe Scott will want to take Frank Miller up and see if he's sincerely up for any of these ideas. I think Frank Miller it still has some good stories in him, if I had to guess. I think he does. I think he's gone down his route of, super pulpy and stuff, but I feel like he's still got he's the same guy that can figure out structure and character motivation. I'd like to think that he could still do something a little different than what he's done before. Maybe I'm being naive. You know what? He probably would like doing Absolute Plastic Man. He sincerely likes Plastic Man. Good Lord. Can you imagine like somebody like Frank and Jeff on an Absolute Plastic Man? Could you imagine just Jeff Darrow doing something like Plastic Man? I would kill a family member for that. No, I wouldn't kill a family member for that. But the Frank Miller part, now I'm more excited about this idea of Jeff doing something like that. Oh, man. Jeff probably only wants to do his own stuff right now, but I'll just say, like, that would be damned cool. That would be damn cool. Ooh, I like that. Plastic Man is like an especially attractive idea to me. And since he mentioned it, you know, West Coast Dave does have an interview on the Direct Edition podcast with the master, Jeff Darrow. I absolutely adore Jeff Darrow, so I'm always happy to plug anything with him. Jeff he's just the sweetest guy I think I've met in comics, and that's saying something because there's a lot of great people in comics. Jeff is really, really kind. All right, moving on. Lucca. Believe it or not, the Lucca Comics and Games Festival in Lucca, Italy, 60 years old this year. Not too many Comic Cons can compete with that. San Diego is something like 73 or 74. Anyway, Lucca Comics and Games has revealed their poster and the festival dates, October 28th to November 1st. 60th year. All these characters, we may not know them, but they're pretty famous European comics characters. So there's a lot of history being represented here. So the cover, I also want to point out, is by artist Claudio Castellini, who was born in Rome in 66, and that's the year that Lucca started, which is a pretty famous Italian comics festival, one of the biggest. Maybe the biggest? I don't know. Castellini made his name on a bunch of cool Italian comics like Nathan Never and Dylan Dog before he became the first Italian artist to work on Marvel Comics from Italy. There's other Italians that, of course, moved here and stuff, but still. I don't know. I certainly popularized it. So there's some nice history there, like with both the artist and the convention. Anyway, September 24th, it's not just about comics, it's also about games. Lucca will release an 8-bit game as an app. I'm going to sneeze. Darn it. Terrible host. I always sneeze twice. All right. Yeah, so they're going to have a game that celebrates their history. It's called Luke and Clea, A Quest for Legacy. Yeah, he is amazing. Mel Brooks is a lucky guy. To make it to 100 and still be all there mentally and be able to walk around and stuff, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Lucca promises panels and exhibitions honoring Lucky Luke, pretty famous Western comic from over there. Tilly Walden, Go Nagai, Frank Miller, Jonathan Hickman, Peach Momoko, artist Seth, Korean webtoon master JH, Taiwan's Chang Sheng, who's up for 2 Eisners this year, and a bunch more. Pretty cool. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'd love to go to something like Lucca or Angoulême someday, like a European big convention, a festival. I would love that. Here's a weird story, folks. All right, so this guy that you see there is a comic book and pop culture writer and historian, Andrew Farago. I might be mispronouncing his name. Well, he's been arrested this past week after allegations of recording people in his bathroom while they attended a party. Gross. According to court papers, a woman found a phone containing several recordings, including a video of Farrago setting the phone up, concealing it with a towel, and aiming it to record people's genitalia as they used the restroom. Again, gross. Farrago was the curator of San Francisco's Cartoon Art Museum from 2001 until apparently this month. Don't know if that's related or a coincidence. He's authored books like The Looney Tunes Treasury, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Ultimate Visual History. Actually, I think I have that book now that I think of it. I'm pretty sure I do. And The Definitive History of Batman. On June 3rd, police arrested Farrago in his home in South Berkeley, California, on 20 counts of invasion of privacy. I'm pretty sure that means that he did this to 20 different people that were at the party or something. According to the Berkeley Scanner, a local newspaper, charges have not yet been filed, and authorities said they cannot release more information as the investigation is ongoing. However, I don't think he helped his case with this. The article says Farrago emailed his guests admitting he did this and apologizing. Yikes. I don't know what the punishment is for something like that. I have no idea. I should have. That's the kind of thing I guess ChatGPT is for, right? Because like I wouldn't know where to begin looking something like that up. I don't know. I'd never heard of him either. This was not a great introduction. It does sound like something somebody from the Eltingville Club would do. If you don't know that, really funny comic by Evan Dorkin, folks. Yeah. Oh, man, that's brutal. He curates more than art. I don't know what he's thinking, whether it was like supposed to be a prank or if it's a fetish or what. It doesn't sound cool. Pretty crazy story. We'll see if there's any fallout. I guess that's arguably a good light. I feel like the search functionality of AI is going to be the lasting impact from it. I think it's too expensive to ever function right now anyway on any meaningful level for creating images and videos. I think that will ultimately fail. It might face a lot of legal challenges. I hope it does, but it also just the amount of resources it sucks up. Like these AI companies are losing so much money on it, but the ability that it has to interpret, just a question and get you an answer, it probably still doesn't do good. I'm not an expert there, but I feel like that's the bit of technology that will remain. We'll see. That's exactly. That's what as I start to say this, I go, but it might just give you a convincing answer and it's not right. So who knows? But I still feel like that's a possibility for the future. Like if we Google something, that technology will somehow be refined and be used. But I don't know. That's just me speculating. Hey, speaking of AI stuff, I've got an actual news article about it, and this is pretty cool to me. Naoki Urasawa, one of my favorites, maybe my very favorite living storyteller in comics. Pluto, Billy Bat, Monster, 20th Century Boys, Master Keaton, Urawa, Pineapple Army, Asadora. So many good comics, manga, but so many good ones. He's my favorite. Well, he's going to launch a new manga series, Saigo no Manga Kyoshitsu. I was going to say I didn't pronounce classroom right. And it means the final manga classroom. What is it about? Well, I'll get there. It's going to appear starting in the August 12th issue of Shogakukan's Big Comic Original Special. I think that's a monthly. He's still doing Asadora, to be clear. Nope, he is still doing Asadora as well. He's often done about 2 different comics at once. He usually has an overlap. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. the magazine announced the upcoming manga with questions, and I'm not great at translating this, but it is asking things like, in this era where AI can do anything, this is AI here. You can at least see that much, right? AI. Nani ni, I don't know that kanji symbol. Never mind. So anyway, but it's asking, what challenge do you want to take on? What challenge would you want to take on when AI can seem to do anything? That's what it's asking artists. That's a question for the artists. And it's asking stuff like, what tools do you want? What tools do you want to use? Urasawa has said, by the way, separate but related to this, he said in a TV interview, we originally wanted to do the tasks AI is doing for us now. So getting AI to do those things means we're letting them have all the fun. Actually, all the stages of art are fun for me. From sketching to coloring and shading, I want to do all the shadowing myself. I feel like letting AI take over all the work will make things no fun for me. Urasawa has always been good about blending comic books or manga, I'll call it, sorry, manga stories with the meta narrative of the making of comics. He's made some comics about like himself making comics. He's made some short stories. I want to say there's a good anthology by his called something like Sneeze, if I remember right. And of course, he's created the show that's still running many years. It's been over a decade on Japan's NPR or version of NPR called what, NHK is their channel, I want to say. Anyway, Monben. Monben is this amazing documentary show where he follows a manga creator in their studio for about a week, and then they look at what they've created on a projector and talk back and forth about their choices, about like why they're doing a certain storytelling things. It's what inspired me to create comic tropes. Very much the main thing that inspired me to create comic tropes. So yeah, love it. I wish I had like some other art to show you. This is just an ad for it, but it sounds interesting to me, and he's never made a bad story. A video about your dad. Yeah. Toasty381's dad walked around and his shoes started stinking. I don't know what I'm going to say about your dad. I don't know who your dad is. Turtles live on stage. There are a few episodes that have subtitles on YouTube. Yes, there are a few with subtitles. Yeah. Right. The artist that also did the first Spider-Man manga. All of a sudden I'm forgetting the artist's name. That one's really good. I thought I'd talked about that a few times before, but that was my inspiration. I was like, oh, I want to do a show like Monben. Well, I don't have access or money to, fly to other creators' studios and houses and stuff, but maybe I could start by just doing analysis. And that was my idea. Oh, that's very cool. Well, she's on the other side of the country, so no time soon, but I would love to. Next time I fly out there, we'll have to do it. All right, so this is a new image, by the way. This is not the Ninja Turtles from the 1990s. Paramount Products and Experiences. That's a very artistic name, isn't it? Hey, we're Paramount Products and Experiences. We make art. And Maximum Entertainment. Can't get any higher than that. It's at the maximum. They're partnering to create Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live on stage. It's going to be a new live theatrical event launching fall 2027 to celebrate the original animated series 40th anniversary. 1987 was when that started. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live on stage is going to be produced by, this is some good talent, Tony Award-winning producer Eva Price, director, choreographer, and two-time Tony Award nominee Jennifer Weber, and Emmy Award-winning playwright and screenwriter, I want to say Chi Nguyen? Anyway, the production will blend. Here we go. Martial arts choreography. Good. Parkour. Jump off that wall. Hip-hop dance battles. Stop drilling. You struck oil. Projection technology. Whatever. And humor. Whoa. Thanks for throwing that in. To reimagine the franchise as a fast-paced spectacle for all ages. So it's going to be a touring show. It's not like it's something for, what do you call it, Broadway or something like one place. It's going to be a touring show next year. I'm interested. Exactly. I remember that. Talking about like their favorite pizza, talking about April. Peter Parkour. The coming out of their shells. I was amused at how Playmates created a set of Ninja Turtles action figures based very specifically on the coming out of their shells live tour. So like I've got Donatello with like, you know, a guitar and his denim jacket. No. That was their Christmas special. That was not their live show. But yes. Gotta get a gift for Splinter. They will serve nothing but pizza. I never saw the coming out of their shells live tour thing. I was aware of it though. So who knows? Maybe I'll get a chance to see the Ninja Turtles live on stage next year. Maybe. Wish I had more images or anything. There's an official website. All it has is literally this image. There's nothing else to it. But I think it could be fun. I think anybody here that watches the live show knows I am a massive fan of Larry Hama and his version of G.I. Joe. But if you don't, I am. Let me give you a little history and how that has turned into something bigger, because it is comic book related. 1981, Larry Hama was working at Marvel, and he pitched a book to Marvel that didn't get picked up. But this image is his character sketches for the main characters. It would have been called Fury Force, and it would have followed Nick Fury Jr. as a colonel, and it had like a paramilitary team of experts in different disciplines. Like this guy was like, you know, the machine gunner. This sort of revenant, shadowy guy was the commando, like Snake Eyes. There was a lady intelligence officer like Scarlet. Louie, who is kind of a mix between Storm Shadow and Tunnel Rat. I want to say this guy was Jelly. He became Stalker, but he was the communications guy. There's Brujo, who's like an explosives guy. So he had all these ideas for like specialists, and he based them on a lot of the people that he served with when he was in the army as a demolitions expert over in Vietnam during that conflict. Anyway, the book wasn't picked up, but then he reused the premise and those character archetypes when Marvel was looking for somebody to create a story for G.I. Joe. Hasbro had created like 13 figures for an initial wave, but they didn't have a story. They didn't have bios or anything. Larry Hama wrote the bios for the back of those action figures throughout the 80s and 90s, as well as the comic book, which he still writes today, over 300 issues later. So he's really developed these characters. Anyway, this past week was Joe Fest, a fan G.I. Joe convention, and they revealed that there's a small toy company called Big Bad Workshop. They showed off prototypes of 1/12 scale figures based on his original Fury Force. So this was originally going to be a Marvel comic. The ideas were redone and became G.I. Joe, but not the same guy that was Scorpio. It was going to be a new character at the time. But anyway, I just think that that's kind of cool that this was at one point going to be a comic book. It didn't become a comic book. A lot of the ideas turned into G.I. Joe. Well, now he's like had such history and stuff that people are going back to the prototype. This is basically the prototype G.I. Joe that we know. And from there, you can see like a lot of these characters basically became the characters that we know today. And it will also include a figure of Larry Hama himself. He's going to have a sketchbook, a Comic-Con badge, a coffee, a pencil, and a guitar, since Larry loves playing guitar. So he'll be part of that line. I will at least be getting the Larry Hama figure because I'm just a fan. You know, I bet it, I don't know if it still exists, to be honest. Larry sketched a lot. I talked about this with him in an interview. And he would sketch cover ideas. He would sketch character designs. He would do all this stuff for the books that he wrote and the books he edited. And I don't think he kept a lot of it. He just would like jot it down and dispose of it. If you guys have ever seen Wally Wood's 22 panels that work, that was actually Larry Hama that put together those examples and posted it at his desk at Marvel when he was an editor and popularized that because, of course, Larry was an apprentice for Wally Wood. I think he was his last apprentice, but he's got that history. Yeah, so like Larry was Wally Wood's assistant and apprentice, and always has loved and respected what Wally has contributed to the world. And he's the one that popularized those 22 panels that work. And I'm pretty sure I heard that the original version was called something more like 25 or 30 panels, but we don't have those because, like I was just saying, this stuff wasn't kept. That 22 panels that work is a cropped version. There were a few more examples that we've lost to time. That's right. It also comes, with a Bucky O'Hare comic because that's a creator-owned book that he made. Some nice accessories, some really nice accessories. Larry is a surprisingly good artist. Somewhere I've got a drawing by him. Who did I get? I think I got Snake Eyes. Larry has had one of the most interesting lives. I mean, he went to art school with a bunch of people that became famous. He signed up with the Army and was an explosives and ordnance guy over in Vietnam. So he served in country. He's worked at Marvel, of course, as an editor and created all sorts of creator-owned comics, wrote for Wolverine, G.I. Joe, all this stuff. But he also, he was in a band for many, many, many years. He's been in TV and film as an actor. He's been on stage on Broadway. He studied archery and katana stuff. He's just a man. He's a Renaissance man. That's what I'd call him. He just knows so many things. Yeah, he was in an episode of MASH. And he was in an episode of Saturday Night Live. I mean, he was basically a background actor. But yeah, Martin Sheen was the host, and they did an Apocalypse Now parody. So they needed some Asian actors to portray the environment, and Larry Hama was on SNL. Yeah, I did Wolf the Barbarian for Atlas. He also did Planet of the Vampires. He wrote for Atlas Comics. Just a super interesting guy. Super interesting. Yep, Tunnel Rat is based on his appearance. The G.I. Joe figures that Hasbro created, they would often create a likeness. They were kind of simple likenesses, but a likeness for people that worked for Hasbro that eventually included Larry Hama, or they would use real people's names. They would never do that today, but yeah. There's a lot I could talk about with Larry Hama. I find him one of the most interesting people in comics. This could be fun if you're in the Cleveland area. The Maltz Museum in Beechwood, Ohio is hosting a 2-day Icons Fest mid-July. The Maltz Museum is a Jewish history museum. It's in a suburb of Cleveland, and they have a new exhibit dedicated to the history of local comics creators from the area, all Jewish creators, but that includes guys like Siegel and Schuster, the guys that created Superman, Harvey Pekar, an icon in underground comics, Brian Michael Bendis, popular modern guy. A lot of cool history. Oh, that's awesome, Dave. I know that you just did an interview with him, but I didn't realize, I haven't heard it yet. Did you release it? I did an interview with him on Comic Tropes. I did an interview with him. And I've talked actually about a few G.I. Joe comics too, now that I think of it. Yeah, so I have talked about Larry Hama. Guests at this 2-day event will include Bendis, Peter Cooper, Joe Rubinstein, an inker, New Yorker cartoonist Amy Kurzweil, cartoonist and children's author Terry Liebenson, artist Mark Andraco, and a bunch more. There's going to be events, there's going to be panels, there's going to be workshops, there's going to be panels about Jewish creators and comics. They're going to show the movie, the 1978 Superman movie, and have some experts talk about it. They've got an artist alley. So if you're anywhere in that area, this legit might be a really cool thing to go check out. I'm on the other side of the country. If I was anywhere on the East Coast, I would drive to this. So, oh, good. Hopefully you can get it out just before the 11th, 12th to hype it up for him. But yeah, Thailand. Ooh, I'm jealous. Hope it's not too humid there right now. But that looks like a lot of fun. And finally, this is the only Marvel news I have, really, but available beginning July 1st, very soon, through whenever it sells out, Dave's Hot Chicken. Not Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's. No, none of those. We've got a kids meal at Dave's Hot Chicken. Okay, Dave, I didn't recognize your game, but respect. They are making toys based on X-Men 97 to promote season 2. So it is $13.99, so it ain't cheap, but you can get a Dave's number 4 meal that either is a slider and fries or chicken nuggets, bites and fries, plus 1 blind bag figure. It can be one of 4 characters: Wolverine, Storm, Jean Grey, Cyclops, each of them with a costume that they'll be wearing in season 2. Season 2 is going to have the X-Men all thrown to different timelines. So, I think that the Cyclops and Jean Grey, for instance, are in their gear as they were called Slim and Red when they were thrown into the future with baby Cable, and they raised him. That damn Dave never pays me for his chicken sales. West Coast Hot Davengers, right? Dave's Hot Comics. I collect Storm nonsense, so this news made me go, ugh, knowing I'll buy that one. Well, it's a blind bag, so you might end up buying more than one. I know. I think it'll be popular. Is Supergirl at KFC? I think I missed that. I've been eating really healthy, and I just don't do fast food at all. So some of this stuff is a complete blind spot for me right now. Complete blind spot. But anyway, I just wanted to share that. Dave's Hot Chicken, obviously not everywhere, but it's definitely one of these chicken places that's growing. I would say that in general, chicken seems to be growing faster than burgers here in America now. Because I feel like I do see more and more Chick-fil-A's, Churches, Popeyes, KFC's. I see a lot those growing. We've got a local one here called Ezel's. There's this Dave's Hot Chicken. What's another big chicken franchise? I feel like there's another one that just cropped up around here. Is it Raising Cane's? Is Raising Cane's chicken? I can't quite remember. I definitely don't know. And they don't look bad. So I thought I'd just put it on people's radar. Maybe it's fun. Maybe it's fun. I have never had Dave's Hot Chicken. I wonder if it's any good. Has anybody eaten at Dave's Hot Chicken? I would say my favorite, if I chose from those places, I like Popeyes the most. I'm not going to let myself have it anymore, but I like Popeyes. I like Popeyes a lot. Dave's is terrible. Oh, yep. Excuse me. Jollibee. You're right. You're right. Oh, man. Jollibee's a good one. Jollibee's good. You have to get the gravy. You have to get their gravy. But yeah. Dave's lukewarm chicken. Chickens are easy to grow and generally difficult to screw. Yeah, exactly. It's easy to, you just fry it. There's probably a decent profit margin, and it's probably not as bad for the environment as like raising tons and tons of cows, like all the methane they create. Popeye. I'm not in the Midwest either, but I guess they're here in the Seattle area now. So yeah, Dave's is perpetually empty here in Portland. Well, maybe they need something like this X-Men to bring people in. I have not heard of Rocky's Chicken Shack. Any good? Popeye's chicken is the shiznit. I remember that reference. All right, that's what we will do for news. So let's pivot to reviews, because there was the end of the Marvel Universe, the Ultimate Universe, that is. I think that we need to talk about some of this stuff. Let me get set up here so that I can talk to you about the latest comic books that came out. There's lots more show.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we? To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
That doesn't quite look right, does it? Let's see what I can do about that. Never really had that before. Let's try it this way. No. Sorry, folks. I've got a second camera here that I'm trying to turn on. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Let me zoom in a little and get that positioned. We will talk about some comic books, because that's what this show is. It's a comic book show, believe it or not. Most of these will be some pretty quick reviews. Hey, a super chat. All right. Can we get an opinion on Absolute Martian Manhunter? I only read the first issue and was trying to cut back, and apparently that was a mistake because everybody says it's incredible. So I got to pick that up in trade paperback form at some point because I did not read it. Dumb. So I don't know if anybody else got this. I got a free Supergirl issue 1. Not everybody was getting them, but I think it's because it does say filmed for IMAX, and it's got an IMAX and an AMC logo here. So I think this might have been exclusive to AMC's IMAX showings of Supergirl. Other than that, it is just the first issue of the comic, but I'm just saying I appreciated getting that. Some lovely Bilkis Evely art. I've already got it, but I'll take another copy because this has a new original cover. And so I kind of like that. That was really nice. But let's talk about some stuff that we haven't necessarily seen before. Although some people have, because this X-Men comic by John Byrne has, of course, been on his forums since around 2019 was when it started. I'm still reading through it, to be clear. But I got a copy. By the way, this was hard to get. I don't know if anybody else went to get it. I had to out of curiosity. When I ordered it from Amazon, and then the day that it was supposed to ship out, it said that it was back ordered, even though I'd pre-ordered it quite a while ago. I was like, oh, well, I don't know if I like that. So then I started looking at Barnes & Noble in the area, and there was one. It was like a 30-minute drive away, but it said it had it in stock, so I reserved that and canceled my online order. But it is interesting. It's very interesting. So if you don't know, John Byrne just decided to make a fanfic X-Men comic just for himself, starting in 2019. He would do basically a page a day, Monday through Friday, and he just penciled it. This is now inked and colored by, honestly, like kind of fans. It does give credits to everybody here. There's 2 pages that are, or 2 guest inkers. Walt Simonson inks 1 page and Scott Williams inked 2 pages. But aside from that, it's inked either by John Byrne himself for this publication or a guy named Paul Wills, who I think is just a member of his, his message boards. Some colorists whose names I have to admit I don't know either. It's definitely interesting. It feels Bronze Age, but it doesn't feel 100% Bronze Age because it wasn't made back then, was it? So it's got like a lot of ideas and an attitude. It's following up story-wise as though John Byrne got to write the book instead of Chris Claremont, continuing from when they did their book together. Marvel themselves are not publishing this, to be clear. Instead, it's done like with a licensing deal through a book publisher called Abrams Comic Arts. I know what to do. And it's a tiny logo, so I guess that was pointless. But they've got a Marvel Arts imprint where they license certain things. I look at this and I go, yeah, that looks mostly like classic John Byrne. I like the overall storytelling. It has the strengths and weaknesses of a classic John Byrne story. But it moves at a good pace overall. The story moves at a good pace. It's easy to follow. It gets right to like action beats and stuff. So that's nice. It's got good dialogue. I would just say that as time went on, I started to see certain things in the storytelling that didn't always work for me. A lot of, I'm sure I can find one without taking too much effort. A lot of like pages where somebody is standing on the panel border. I'm just like, I say that, and now maybe he's done a good job of not leaning into that trope too much. That's barely an example, but like here's like an AIM guy. A lot of times he'll have people like literally standing on or close to the border. It's just a thing he does. I feel like it creates a weird tangent and turns the panel into the art in a way that distracts me slightly. I also kind of wish that the coloring was done in flat colors of the time, whereas like instead it's sort of got like little bits of gradients that I think are just a little over rendered. It looks good. it's got plenty of detail. I think John Byrne was having fun doing this because it's more detailed than he was adding to a lot of his art in the most recent stuff that he would do, like on monthly books. But it's done in thicker lines than he certainly used to use, or at least the inking is. I would think that with what we know now about where John Byrne's art looked best, you'd go like, oh, like those early issues of, X-Men looked good. And some of that was the inks. Trying to think real quick. Who was the... I feel like an idiot. All of a sudden, his name is completely slipped my mind. It was just on the tip of my tongue, and now it's slipped. Terry Austin. Jesus. I love Terry Austin's fidelity. And I look at this and, like, I'll find a face. It's just sort of thicker feathering and stuff than I think that we see with Terry Austin. It's a small and somewhat subtle difference, to be fair. There's also some stuff that, like, you'd think that with the time that's passed, we'd maybe move away from. Like, Kitty is portrayed as very, very young, 12 or 13, and she's still, like, kissing adult Colossus and stuff. It's a little creepy. It makes me uncomfortable. One thing I enjoy, I'm going back and forth with what I enjoy and what I don't. I feel like Byrne has really leaned into some of the Jack Kirby influences that I don't feel like I always see. But, like that look at MODOK, that looks very Kirby-esque to me. And there was just a weird energy room for AIM. And that looks very Kirby-esque. And I like that. I think certainly whenever they're in, a modern villain headquarters, the walls and the paneling feels very Kirby-esque. Anyway, it is fun. There's a little bit of inconsistency. It's not always easy to tell. Like, some pages will, like, just be flowing, like similar ink, similar colors, and then all of a sudden something does feel a little different here and there. But I'm willing to take that because I'm like, this book, I understand the process it was created within. You know what I'm saying? This is experimental. Because it's fanfic and he was doing sort of a page a day instead of like, this is a monthly story, this is a monthly story, this is a monthly story. It still breaks into chapters that are roughly equivalent to an issue, but it flows even faster than I would say normal. There's nothing that an editor is stepping in saying, I want you to pause and add a subplot. I want you to pause and mention this other, like, crossover book. There's nothing like that. So every page is pushing the narrative forward at a good pace. It's made to be fun. It's wild that it got published. I mean, 7 years after, but yeah. Terry Austin, John Byrne is the combo that most X fans want. I think so too. My impression is that Byrne is no longer that big on Austin's precision. I believe he's not. I believe he's not a huge fan of that. But for me, I think that that's when his artwork looked best. I think he benefits from an inker that, look, there's plenty of room for interpretation, I would say. Look at the pencils. Go to Byrne's website, Byrne Robotics. Expect some not great stuff, but all being talked about, but expect to see some really interesting penciled artwork. It's got a lot of detail, but it's still open to interpretation. Yeah, we get some fun stuff, like he uses whatever Marvel characters he felt like using. There were no limits. There's no limits on the book. So that's what's fun. Yeah, look, it's not exceptional, but it's super interesting to anybody that is a fan of Marvel history, X-Men history, John Byrne history. It's super fascinating to see a project like this. To see somebody come at it like what, like, let's see, if he was doing it in the early 80s and then he started doing, it's like about 45 years or more after his run. I mean, he certainly drew the X-Men between then, but it's just fascinating to see him go back to that era and continue a story. I understand that. If your enjoyment of this will probably hinge on how much you like the John Byrne X-Men run. You probably have to be kind of a fan of that. And so I think that there's a demand for this, but it's also not the same demand that you'll see on something newer like Absolute Batman. But there's basically people of my Gen X generation that want this. We've got to see what it is. I do think he used to make sort of prettier women, but I also saw him make some improvements here and there. He used to not do the greatest kids, right? Like, he was terrible at drawing kids, but there's some kids in here, and I was like, oh, those actually look like kids. I'm trying to see if I can come across an example. I don't know. This is a pretty small one, but I'm like, okay, that doesn't look like an adult's face on like a little kid's body. In some of these first pages, Jean Grey is hanging out with her like nieces and nephews, I want to say. There it is. Yeah, like these are kids, okay? Here, I'm going to zoom in. It wants to close, and I want to reach up and zoom in. Let me put some weight on this. Okay. I'm going to zoom in on something. It's not like it's incredible, but these look like kids, right? I'm going to show you something to compare it to. Just give me a moment to pull all this up. I wasn't planning on doing this, but I gotta. All right. So now I'm going to share something. That's like how he used to draw kids. And I'm like, that just doesn't look like a baby to me. That looks so weird. I don't know what to say. But anyway. Look, it's probably not for everybody, but for those of us that grew up with this comic, it is super interesting to see where the story went. So the writing is at least as interesting as the art. I like the writing more, to be honest. Look, I really enjoyed the Ultimate Universe that Marvel put together. I think we got 2 years of exceptional stories on Ultimates and very, very good stories with Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men. I have to admit, I didn't stick with Wolverine or Black Panther. Couldn't read everything. And now we get to Endgame, a 5-issue story where the heroes all go up against the Maker, the villain that made their universe. Didn't really work for me, folks. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Didn't work for me. Surprised, because I like a lot of what Dennis Camp writes. I mean, it concludes it just fine. But essentially, like right at the last minute, Tony Stark gets, his time travel engine thing to work, and all of a sudden, the good guys can come from behind and beat Maker. Okay? And so the good guys win. But I thought, I don't know where it's showing it, but yeah, there's a hint that things aren't done. I guess there's 2 books I got to show you for how this wraps up. The maker was like, he's Reed Richards, so he's like all plasticky, stretchy and stuff, and he leaves like a little bit of goop here, and we don't really see too much of what's going on there. But if you read Ultimate Universe Finale, it lets each of the creators tell like one last story with their characters. Spider-Man is, fun, but not important. Actually, they're all kind of fun, but not important. The only thing that's relevant is that at the very end of everything, I don't know that this doesn't spoil what the story is. It just goes to this, okay? This is the Ultimate Universe Doctor Doom, who we never met, and he gets a piece of what's left of the Maker. And even though we were told that this was all done, we get told now the Ultimate Universe will return. So Marvel didn't really play fair there. They didn't really play fair at all. Why they ended in the first place, I don't think was good business sense, because it was selling quite well. And as soon as they announced it was ending, sales did dip, even though the quality, I think, of the story stayed high. The Ultimate Battle is just so generic. That's all it is. It just doesn't like raise the stakes or do anything too unique or anything. The good guys all team up and they beat the bad guy. I don't like, you could tell me that's a spoiler, but what else is going to happen in a superhero comic? If it happened in a unique way, I wouldn't like sort of hop to the end. All I can say is that like, it doesn't really end. It's such a, and the stories will continue type thing. Which in some ways I'm like, okay, if you have the Ultimate Universe is legit, got some interesting ideas to it. And if you want to continue to tell stories there, that's fine. But why did you say that it was absolutely ending and then not really end anything? Like there's no ending here. This is an example of what I won't spoil. One hero does die and doesn't come back. Okay? One prominent hero does not come back. Okay. But then again, it's a superhero universe, so who knows? Maybe they'll undo that someday. It very much like that last panel doesn't connect in any like plot way. It's more just sort of like, and then if we feel like it, we can continue things. Well, okay, but you definitely didn't give us any real closure. You gave us like they teamed up and they fought the villain. We always kind of knew that would happen, right? The stakes were never very personal to me. I didn't like the ultimately how Maker, the big villain of the piece, was confined to this sort of like prison, right? And they were always battling him in this prison, and he was like, he had his minions and stuff, but no, he should have gotten out and threatened the lives of friends and family members. That should have been like what happened. So that we had personal stakes. We're like, oh, Spider-Man's family is in danger. I care about that. Instead, it was just the heroes were trapped in this prison with him and are fighting. And eventually, yeah, good, they beat him. There's nothing to it. And I'm just surprised because I really thought that the book Ultimates told a lot of interesting stories. And it went to some great places. And I would legit recommend those 24 issues to anybody. It's a good story. But if you're looking for an actual conclusion to the universe or something like that, Endgame is almost pointless. Didn't care for it at all. Didn't care for it. I'm disappointed. I thought I would be like by the time I got to like issue 3 of 5, and I was like, this hasn't gone anywhere. But Ultimate letdown. Ultimate end lame. Oh, jokes. We got jokes. Marvel rug pull. I don't know. More fun was everything else. I don't know that you need big reviews of everything else I'm reading. I will say that Absolute Wonder Woman is telling a two-part story that is primarily about Diana being stuck back in hell. The villains in the last story arc sent her back to this sort of hell place that she lived, and she's sort of trapped, right? She's got to figure her way out. Or she's got to at least figure out like who's kidnapped her mother, who's always trapped there. It's by a guest artist whose work I was not familiar with before. And the artist is what? I want to say Dylan Snook. Is that right? Yeah, Dylan Snook. Not familiar. Very good. Very good. Liked this a lot. You know, this reminds me of sort of Alex Toth, you know, not flashy, but like really, really rock solid storytelling, good character work, good gesture, good emotions, good panel to panel storytelling. And I like things like certain decisions on shading, like, you know, this underlit Barbara Minerva panel looks good to me. So, you know, I'm a big fan of Hayden Sherman, and I was like, oh no, a guest artist. It won me over. It won me over when I love seeing Hayden Sherman. It's not the same type of panel work, but it's really good storytelling. So I got to look up this Dylan Snook person, because for me, this totally worked. And I do not mind that I'm going to get another issue by Dylan Snook telling this 2-issue storyline. I don't mind that at all, because I like this artwork. So anyway, that was just a nice, pleasant surprise to come across somebody new as a fill-in artist. Usually a fill-in artist, I'm like, darn it. I liked it. I did get Powers. Was there a new issue of Escape this past week? I don't think there was. Was there? June 24th, was there a new issue of Escape? Jeez. I hope I didn't miss it. I love Escape. Look, I'll just quick recommend or not recommend. Void Rivals, I legit find this bounty hunter character Skuxoid as interesting as any of the main characters that they introduced. This was like a throwaway villain in the 3rd season of Transformers, and Kirkman has found a way to make this character one of the most interesting. It's all about him fighting duplicates of himself, and I loved it. This is a really strong issue. Feral / Stray Dogs continues to be an absolute banger, but I've told you that so many times that I don't think you need to hear me recap the plot and recommend it strongly again. What I will say, though, is that being a flip book, that this combines their stories directly connect in the middle if you flip it upside down. And I love that. Very, very nice. I've read a bunch of things by Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips, and I've come to find that, especially with Chris Condon, I love it when he's writing crime stories like That Texas Blood, or this, the Peril of the Brutal Dark, an Ezra Kane mystery. But I don't necessarily love his superhero stuff. And you would think, like, you like a writer, you like a writer. But his Wolverine thing didn't connect with me at all. Not that it was bad, it just didn't connect. But Brutal Dark is so fun. The best way I can describe it is sincerely like noir, Humphrey Bogart type stuff combined with Indiana Jones archaeologist adventure stuff. I like Ezra Kane a lot, and I like the adventure. I like the sort of the Nazis playing with mystical, supernatural powers. I like the hard-boiled detectiveness of it as he investigates it. It's fantastic. Escape E8 came out this past week? Shit, did it really? Let me double check the cover, because I thought that I got the latest issue. I'm just looking something up for my own benefit so I don't forget. Shoot, it did. I missed it. I hope that they still have a copy at my comic store. Darn it. That's my own fault for not asking them to put it in my pull list, even though I love it. Every once in a while I forget. Escape is one of my favorites right now. Darn it. I'm legit frustrated. It's one of my favorite books out there right now. Oh, Narco is this like murder mystery book where the main character essentially has narcolepsy. So he falls asleep if his heartbeat gets up too high, which is a cool dynamic. And I was sincerely worried that the killer was this guy that I suspected. All I can say about this is it absolutely directly addresses that and moves right past it into a new direction. So it like has totally overcome my concerns that I had guessed what the twist is. So Narco continues to be a crime comic I'm enjoying. Really, really fun. And the final book I read this week that I have in front of me anyway is issue 3 of Corpse Night. And this thing moves fast, folks. There's a bunch of pages that don't have really any dialogue to it. So it's a kind of a quick read, but I like it a lot. A, beautiful artwork by Matt Roberts. And B, the story is disturbing. I also have decided I love this helmet design of the titular Corpse Knight. I think that looks fantastic. Did Infernal Hulk 8 come out? I did miss some stuff. I was working on Wednesday. I get an hour-long lunch break, right? And you're punching in and punching out at my job. And the comic book store is literally a 25-minute drive away. So I've got just enough time to get to the store, quickly get my comics, get the hell back to work. So far, I've never been late. Like I've got enough time to do it. But, yeah, I guess I went so fast I missed a couple things that I wanted. Darn. Farrell is great because he keeps going in new directions and keeps it fresh. Great characters. Love it. Love it. I do have a pull list, but I sometimes forget like what's on it and what isn't. And if I go on a day that I'm not working, I try to update it. But if I go on a day I'm working, I don't have enough time to pause. No, I don't think I know the store on South Tacoma Way. I go to Stargazers in Tacoma, but that's on 6th. Oh, I don't think Dork is lame at all. I think Dork is fun and cool and, a breath of fresh air. It's cartoony, but it's violent. It's got some great world building. It's got a legit interesting character to it. I like it quite a bit. This is what's tricky right now is that I've got a bunch of comics that I like, and I'm trying to be a little ruthless in what I can cut. And I think I might be willing to cut Infernal Hulk, although I'm curious about Hulk War. So I might give up on it and then come back to it once Nick Klein gets back on the art. But Escape, I absolutely meant to pick up. Escape is right at the very top of my pull list right now. Fantastic. No, I didn't. I would have liked to have seen who was in there. I'll talk about Supergirl in a minute. Just switch to graphic novels. It would probably be in some ways cheaper and easier to not miss stuff, but I do enjoy reading a variety of stuff weekly and discussing it. So that's, yeah. It would be nice to get just trade paperbacks and put it on a shelf. But I also feel like because I have made a bit of a career out of talking about comic books, I do feel an additional obligation to support the industry. And I think that includes supporting a comic book shop on a weekly basis, as well as the comics that I like the most. The comics don't all get trade paperbacks if they're not selling. So I know I'm just one person, but I do feel a bit of an obligation there. Are there really only 2 issues left? Maybe I'll pick them up after all then. I didn't realize we were that close. My favorite book that Remender has ever written. That's not an easy one to answer. I like a lot of his books. Escape is way up there. Grommets is a recent one that's way up there. Seven to Eternity and Fear Agent are both really strong and pretty epic. Like if you read it long enough, it starts to mean even more. I'm definitely not going to San Diego Comic-Con. Nothing happened there. Yeah. It's okay. Oops. What else? I do like Jim Zub a lot, and that is one that I tend to read in trade paperback format. But Jim is a really good writer. All right, so sorry, I'm drawing here, but I think I've put it off. I'm going to just talk a little bit about Supergirl. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything. Short version is I did like it, and I would give it somewhere close to a 7 out of 10 type score. Something like a C plus or something. But not something that I can claim is fantastic, but something I will definitely say is I don't regret having spent my time seeing it at a theater. I'd probably watch it again at some point. Quite a bit that's good about it. I thought the strongest elements were Millie Alcock's performance. She's legit interesting. I believed in this Supergirl having gone through traumatic things that shape her in a different way, but she's at her core a good person. I like that. Most of the humor worked for me. I mean, it is trying too much. This is part of like a slight knock. It's trying to be too much like a Guardians of the Galaxy thing. But like there's a scene on a space bus. It worked for me. Some of the criticisms I'd heard about the the action scenes being like hard to see or something like that. I didn't have any sort of an issue with that. I thought it was quite strong. I went with several friends, and you'd think that like at least one person might not like it, but we were all in agreement when we came out. We were like, that was quite good, right? And people were like, yeah. I liked the actress playing Ruthie quite a bit. She really felt authentic to the version of the character I'd read in the comics, but she was probably by nature of it just being a condensed narrative, she didn't have quite as much to do. It was enough about her that the story still worked, and I liked Ruthie. There's one of my favorite issues of the comic is where Ruthie has to protect Supergirl when Supergirl is incapacitated. And in this, she really didn't get that full opportunity. She sort of does it, but it's very much condensed. And I get why, because that would probably feel very slow in the middle to 2/3 of the way in for a movie. For a comic, it worked great as like, a dedicated issue to showing like this tough struggle. But I do get why it wouldn't necessarily work on screen. It probably would work fantastic if it was a TV show like episode. And maybe this should have been a TV show like Peacemaker or something. Maybe it should have been. Anyway, I had a good time. I really did. I also, after I saw it and enjoyed it so much, I go, oh, well, this will do much better than they're predicting. But no, it didn't. It is whatever it is. I don't care too much about. It's like if I got to see it and enjoy it, that's enough for me. that's enough. If they don't make more, that's not going to hurt me either. But I do recommend it. If you're on the fence about it, all I can say is I thought it was pretty darn strong. I think most people would really enjoy it. I don't care. I don't care about box office stuff anymore. I don't even care too much about like reviews, except in the context of talking about it as news. But I don't find myself caring as much about like other people's opinions or how a box office represents how a movie did. I care if I got to see it and if I enjoyed it or not. I felt the actors were crippled in scenes that were in Kryptonian. That didn't occur to me. I guess I understand your point, Rami, and I appreciate the super chat very, very much. Well, see, but then that's where you get into a whole political divide where people will review bomb stuff. So I'll talk about it as a point of information, but I don't trust averages too much anymore. I just don't trust them because people skew that information to fit a narrative and turn it into content for, you know, their outrage channels. It's so easy to create an outrage channel for social media. It would burn me out, but it's so easy to just talk about like, this is the worst decision ever, and put that as like a thumbnail, and it will do well. You'll get an audience for it. You'll get people that are upset or angry or legit have a fair criticism. Yeah, the Marvels, I'll still say like, okay, didn't do well. I think it was good. I think it was quite good. Oh, negative reviews absolutely get more views. They absolutely do. So, you know, some of it is, you could call it clickbait or something, although I think we're beyond that and we understand that titles need to grab people's attention. A lot of people don't read full articles for either news or reviews anymore. They just read the titles. That is just a fact. People do not read full reviews anymore or articles. Which is sort of a bummer. People really want digest stuff. Oh, speaking of digest stuff, I think I've said what I need to say about Supergirl. I liked it. It worked for me. So I have recorded the next comic tropes, and I'm even pretty good way into editing it. Talking about Jaws, and it was funny. I was looking for whether there were any illustrations of the characters from the novel, and that's a pretty brief window between the publication of the book and the movie. Because having read the book, I'll just tell you that like Chief Brody is described in like pretty average to slightly below average terms compared to Roy Scheider is a fairly heroic interpretation of Chief Brody in the movie. You know, I mean, he's physically fit and he's got charisma. And I did find some illustrations. There was a Reader's Digest version of Jaws published in 1974. So I was able to find like an example of like, you know, before the movie influenced what people thought he should look like, an interpretation. And yeah, he's just sort of an average looking guy, nothing special. I was like, oh, cool. I was so happy to have found something like that allowed me to just, and it was only for like a second or two, but I get so excited when I can find something like that backs up a point I'm making. Reader's Digest. Does anybody even know Reader's Digest? I don't think that they make it anymore, do they? Reader's Digest is exactly what it sounds like. They would license a story and find a way to condense it for you. It's like, oh, I love reading, but 200 pages. No, I need like, 70 pages. Yeah, there's plenty of dude. There's so many good movies that were flops that like people later looked at and changed. I believe Casablanca didn't do well. I believe what's another really good one that I like? Oh, I know. I watch it every Christmas. What is it called again? It's with Jimmy Stewart, the Christmas movie he's got. Oh, for God's sake, I can't remember it right now. But that bombed originally, and it's a Wonderful Life. Excuse me. Yeah, and both Blade Runner movies are good. Both Blade Runner, The Thing by John. Thank you, John Carpenter's The Thing was a flop. That's a fantastic movie. So like if somebody says like, hey, Supergirl didn't do well. Look, I'm not saying Supergirl is a movie like The Thing or It's a Wonderful Life, but I do think that will get looked at again down the road, and people will be like, "This is fun." It will find an audience. It will find an audience. Not my point. My point was only that some movies get looked at again, and they do. People are like, yeah, I like this. Oh, I missed it when it first came out. People weren't ready for an animated Batman movie while there were live action Batman movies coming out back then. They just were not open to that. But Mask of the Phantasm is quite good. Shawshank Redemption, one of the best reviewed movies out there, didn't do well. So there's plenty of movies like that. My only point here is that in the moment, critical response means not a lot. It can help you decide whether you think you want to go see a movie or not based on how much you trust a reviewer or if you're looking at several reviews. But as an actual indicator of quality, it's quite poor. I saw that Hideo Kojima, who I think has made some wonderful stories in video games, had some really lovely things to say about Supergirl. And I think it was quite good. I really do. Yeah, Donnie Darko. That was a great find. I was so glad that I saw that when it came out. I like Donnie Darko still. And you know what? I thought that meant that I was going to like everything by that director. And I didn't. I found Southland Tales a little interesting, but I didn't like any of his other movies. I didn't know Iron Giant was a flop, by the way. Rick Remender worked on that. If you don't know, Rick Remender was in the animation world before he ever became a comic book maker. And so, yeah, he worked on Iron Giant. He worked on a bunch of great animated films. Probably everybody knows that, huh? Like, I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I was I keep going back and forth. I've recorded the next comic Tropes. I work for the next 3 days, but my goal is to have this episode up by Saturday morning for the 4th of July. That is my goal. And if I have to stay up till like 4 a.m. for several nights in a row to do that, that's what I'm going to do. I'm doing everything I can to make sure it can come out when I want it to, which is I want it to come out by the 4th of July or on the 4th of July. So wish me luck. I'm probably gonna have to sacrifice a bit of sleep to get it done, but I want to. And I hope people like it. I don't think it's going to be necessarily my best episode, but it is one that I'm personally having quite a bit of fun on. So I hope that some of that comes through and it gives you something new and interesting. And then after I do finish this one, I'm going to take it easy by making an episode about, like, I'll find some goofy Golden Age or Silver Age comic. Nice. Oh, look, we got people in Thailand. We got people in Beijing. Appreciate people watching. No Alpha Flight Canadian Day special this year. Sorry, isn't that crazy? What else did I want? Oh, guess what? I don't think I have this in like the ticker, but I started reading a book series that probably everybody already knows about, right? Oh, I'm so glad you picked it up. It's fantastic, just fantastic. I finally have started Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is obviously a very popular book series. And so that got me curious. I'm like, I don't know if I'll like it or not, but when it's this popular, like it enters like, the cultural zeitgeist, I get curious. Plus, the writer is a local. And I was like, yeah, let's see what it is like. And I like it quite a bit. I didn't love that webtoon free comic book day version. I just didn't love the art on it, but the concept interested me. So I finally picked up the first book, and for the amount of free time I have, I would consider myself flying through it. It's funny. It's violent and dark at times, but kind of funny too. I don't know how they're going to adapt something like that. It's not all ages, really. Not really. They're going to have to be careful with it. But it's funny and cool, and I like Carl. He's an interesting protagonist. He's actually not very wordy. He's kind of quiet sometimes, but I like him. I kind of worried that, like, am I gonna be able to follow along because I don't know tons of stuff about role-playing games or something, but no, it's easy to follow. It's really good. Anyway, yeah, if you haven't read it, it's pretty fun. I'm looking forward to finishing it and getting straight to the next one. I really do. I hope you can. I would like to talk to him too, now that I'm kind of getting into this, but I don't know that I really have the appropriate show to invite him on, since I don't do so many interviews, but I like him. Yeah, I wanted to sort of talk about that. It wasn't 100% comic book related, but Genndy Tartakovsky, great animator, right? Pretty great. I haven't seen everything by him. I haven't seen Primal. I know that I'm missing out, but great animator. And he's going to adapt Conan the Barbarian. I think that sounds very cool. I like that matchup. I like that matchup quite a bit. Interesting. Yeah, just the sort of generic house style art just didn't do a whole lot for me. Not that it's so bad, it just didn't do a lot for me. But yeah, I'm excited to I think that there's going to be like a graphic novel version coming out that's by different art team. Maybe that'll be better. I don't know. But anyway, I like the book. That's what's nice. I do recommend it. Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's not necessarily deep, but it moves at a good pace and it has good character work. It's got good humor too. I'm watching a show slowly with Chrissy, like at the end of the day, if it's not too late. It's called Widow's Bay. It's on Apple, which I know not everybody has, but it's quite good. It's a show by Katie Dippold, who wrote for, I think, Parks and Rec, which I really liked. And she wrote that Ghostbusters with Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy that wasn't too great. It wasn't horrible, but it was like there was too much ad-libbing. They should have edited it to be way more concise. But that was my problem with it. But this is a really good supernatural humor show that like kind of shows maybe if she had been in charge of directing the Ghostbusters movie, maybe this is what it could have been. Widow's Bay is it's on a fictional Massachusetts island, and they actually filmed it in Massachusetts. So it looks very authentic as somebody that grew up there. I'm like, oh yeah, like just the vegetation, seeing the ocean, seeing the houses, the old houses. I'm like, that is what I grew up with. Yeah, Matthew Rhys is fantastic on it. I'm a big fan of The Americans, and he was great on that too. It's like this island town that's almost like the premise of The Fog, you know, like a supernatural force comes in. I don't know the exact mechanics because I haven't finished it, but there's all sorts of hauntings. And some of them are legit kind of creepy and scary, but there's a lot of funny character work, and it's subtle character work. It's just people, I don't know. It's really good, folks. It's good humor. It's not silly, but it's good character work. It's grounded. I'm really enjoying the show. I can't imagine it falling apart. Yeah, there is a Twin Peaks, like the original, like sort of season 1, sort of like when people are being quirky and weird, that kind of humor. It works for me. I've got my buddy that lets me use his Apple account, added me to his family plan, is always telling me to watch Slow Horses. I should get around to it. I have to. I know. It's good. Widow's Bay is so good. Yes, there's multiple things happening, but you know that it's all sort of coming from one place, but I don't know what. And then there's sometimes some like subtle creepy things. It's both funny and creepy. One night, the town mayor, who's a bit of a coward, that's going to be his character arc, I think, but he's a bit of a coward, and he's sort of, browbeaten into staying in this hotel that's supposed to be haunted. And he turns on the TV. It's got like a little old documentary talking about the history of the town type thing. It looks like something you'd see on PBS, right? I have a small family. And the guy goes like, come with me. Let's talk. And you expect a cut. And he's going to like show you what's great about the island. And instead he just sort of like walks away. And then not like we on the show, we don't cut, and he just keeps walking away, and he keeps walking away like around this sort of like corner, this bend where there's like trees and stuff. And he just sort of keeps walking. And it's creepy, like just this guy walking off into the distance, and the show, it's funny and it's scary. I was like, that's impressive. Anyway, I do recommend it. I don't think there's anything else I've had time to watch or read, to be honest. I would love to see some movies that are out right now, but I'm only going to allow myself so much time to do that because I'm working on the show as hard as I can. For instance, I'd love to see the action movie The Furious. I'd really like to see that, but I haven't had time. I'd like to see the new Jackass movie. Jackass, some of the gross stuff I don't always love, but generally Jackass makes me laugh pretty hard at some point or another. So those are like two things I'd love to see, but just no time right now. I don't know if anybody else out there got to see either of those things. They both looked interesting to me. So I was interested, but no time. That's okay. So it sounds like I missed a couple comics that I would like. I'm especially upset that I missed Escape. I hope that there is still a copy at my store when I go this Wednesday. Oh, thank you so much for watching it. Yeah, Otto Binder. It's very brief that I got to talk about him. Great creator. Loved his storytelling. So fun. Adventure, family, wacky sci-fi ideas. Really interesting guy that loved science and loved space. You know, like originally thought he might become like an engineer and work in space stuff. And that's why he decided to make a magazine about science and space, but it bombed and like he lost all his money on it. I definitely want to see Fort Psycho, which is related. Don't know anything about that. Sorry. Nope, didn't have time to see either of those. Maybe by the time they hit streaming, if I'm lucky. We'll see. Noah, nice to see you. I just did a piece on John Buscema, and your video was a huge help. Oh, that's nice of you. Yeah, Big John, great artist. Some people think I'm crazy because in my video I said like he's more than a Kirby clone, and so maybe I didn't make that argument well enough with actual quotes. But to be clear, like when John Buscema was working at Marvel, like Stan Lee and some of the other editors really wanted to make him draw like Jack Kirby, which is a crazy thing to think about because John Buscema has such a distinct style, but they really wanted him to. Someday I'll have to do something about his brother Sal Buscema, who certainly, not the same level of popularity and stuff, but still a very good artist who had a nice long run, especially on Spider-Man, that I think flew under the radar to a large extent and has been since critically examined. And, a lot of people saying, J.M. DeMatteis and Sal Buscema told some darn good Spider-Man stories. It's kind of like they were left alone to tell some really good Spider-Man stuff. Amazing was the book that was, getting all the attention and the publicity and stuff, but there was other Spider-Man stuff, and yeah, it's a good book. Did you? Oh, I'll have to find that, man. Yeah, I'll have to find that. Steve, nice to see you. Playing a nerd card games? Good for you. And being social. That said, Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Come on, Mets. Stop stinking up the joint. You reminded me of something. I also was social. I needed to be social. So last night I went over to a friend's house who was having a get together. He has a fire pit, a big one. So we had like a bonfire and we cooked like brats and hot dogs on poker sticks and talked. And then they were drinking. I was just having water, but one person brought fireworks, including Roman candles. And I said, let me try to hit a Roman candle like a baseball. And my friend didn't have a baseball bat, but he had a shovel. And I've got a video, if you want to see it, on Instagram of me trying to hit a Roman candle with a shovel. I miss each time. I do get hit by the Roman candle, and that's pretty funny. But I had a good time. And I needed it. I needed to socialize and sort of just get out of the house and get out of my head a little bit. Been working really, really hard on a lot of stuff. Oh, also, we have been slow to get our house repairs going, which has been a challenge because, that's at least half of our house that we don't have access to. And it's tough, like there's a whole bathroom we don't have. It's where I used to do my show. So I've sort of got, I kind of like this new setup, but we've been slow because it's just taken a lot more time than we expected, but we finally found the people we want to work with and agreed to a contract. It also cost more than I expected. So we needed a little more time, even though our community, my community, has been incredible, and helped us out so much. I needed to gather even some more funds beyond that because it as crazy expensive as it sounded, it went up even more due to some, it's not worth talking about. It's not that interesting. But anyway, so I had to kind of gather more funds. We had to vet companies. We found one. We've agreed to a contract. We're finally meeting the project manager on Friday. So that at that point, we're gonna actually choose the specific flooring and stuff like that, the molding that we'll be replacing. and that will be nice. So like then we'll get the repairs going, and that will take 2 to 3 months. Let's see. I went to Nickel City Comic-Con in Buffalo this week. I initially wasn't going to go, but my buddy convinced me. I got bad anxiety and depression. Me too. Me too. I'm sorry that you're dealing with that, because that's why I forced myself to socialize last night. I'm forcing myself to eat well. The one thing I'm having trouble with is because I just feel I have to work so much right now to make ends meet and everything. I definitely don't have really any time to exercise, and I need to, but I just don't have the time. Anyway, this is the friend I always go to Comic-Cons, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And then I saw Supergirl. I liked it a lot. Yes, I talked about that earlier. I also liked it. I'm glad to hear that you liked it. I'm glad to hear that you did some socializing. I think that that's always good for the mental health. Good for you, Steve. Thanks for the support. I really appreciate you. I'm trying to eat well also. Had cucumbers and uncooked spinach for dinner. I like spinach a lot. Cucumbers, I'm not a I'll eat them. I'm not a massive fan of cucumbers, and yet I love pickles. Sorry to hear that, Black Phoenix. You know, take care of yourself. Just try to force yourself to keep busy, to socialize, eat right, exercise. Those are like the things that we can really do. And see your doctor, right? Socializing really helps. It does. It does. Most exercise I've done is walk. Walking's plenty. Walking's plenty. I just feel like I need to do even more than what I do. Let me click off the banner. I think we've talked about all the topics tonight. But yeah, it's a fun week to talk about comics and stuff with all of you guys. Thank you. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me. Hope you know that. I think I've done everything I can for recommendations and such this week. The things I'd recommend the most this week out of everything that I spent time on would be Widow's Bay, Absolute Wonder Woman, probably Escape if I'd remember to pick it up. Yeah, that's about it. I do recommend Supergirl, but it might not be for everybody. But I do recommend it. What I really recommend is picking up the comic book. I liked it a lot. Thanks for stopping by, Noah. It means a lot. You're great. I am the comic trooper, super trooper. Unofficially, no. Here, you're an official comic trooper, super trooper. And Comic Tropes, a great source of comic goodness. I recommend. Well, thank you. You know, it's been tricky forcing myself to do weekly again. Like this week, for instance, I did another story time because I couldn't edit an episode fast enough. I've come to realize it's unlikely I can usually edit a full essay type episode in just 1 week. I usually need more like 2 weeks to do sort of a fully edited essay style analysis of an artist or a piece of comic book history. So, you know, I'll insert, you know, either a story time or potentially an interview or potentially like a look at maybe a silly golden or silver age comic here and there. And I'll try to do what I can to keep it weekly as much as I can. But I will say that I noticed, even though the views haven't really kicked up per se, just putting out that extra content is rewarding financially on YouTube. So like the income went up, and I was like, oh geez, just by forcing myself to just, you know, put in those extra hours are paying off. So I'm inclined to do as much of this as I can. I'm motivated. It was nice to see like the earnings bump up after being like, like at a certain level all the time. So yeah. Sean Murphy, I am a fan of his work. I'll have to give that some thought. It's tricky. It's tricky because as soon as I do an interview, the requests for more interviews get overwhelming. I already get close to one request a day. Maybe even more now that I think of it. From various, like, both mainstream and indie people. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings by saying, like, hey, I'm doing an interview with this person, but I'm not doing it with you. Like it's tough. It's tough. I don't have the bandwidth to do every request. I just never would. But I don't like people to feel like I'm not respecting them. So that's why I've sort of backed off on a lot of interviews, to be honest, is because I already get somewhere close to about like what would average to like one request a day for an interview. And like I say, now that I think of it, maybe even more than that. But when I do like the occasional interview, whether it's been on the main channel or here, I get this deluge of requests. And it's just so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming because I hate leaving people hanging, but I legit sometimes don't have time to even answer the requests. And I feel terrible about it. I do. I'm too empathetic. I know it's my fatal flaw. Yeah, I know. Now, of course, there's certain people that I would jump at if they're like an icon. If I had an opportunity to talk to Alan Moore or, Frank Miller or somebody like that, I'd kind of have to say yes. I really would. I'd kind of have to. Sorry, just thinking. Thank you so much for watching it. That one was sincerely fun for me to analyze. It was a little bit different because I've done it like that before where I really go into the techniques on a deep level. But I did worry that maybe the language because as I was writing it, it was just shaping up a certain way. And I'm going, is this language too flowery? Am I overwhelming people? But I liked it. I liked it. So I had fun with that one. I don't think I'd say yes to Bill Jemas. I just don't think yeah. The Batman podcast Kevin Smith had back in like 2012. Was that Fat Man on Batman? Was that what he did? I sort of remember something like that. Alan Moore requested that you interview me and you turned it. That sounds right. That sounds right. I agree. I mean, I would do a lot to be able to interview somebody like Naoki Urasawa. That would be a huge privilege. As far as like interviews I've done, I've enjoyed doing all of them on some level. I also find them very stressful in a certain way because I really don't want to ask things that they've been asked before, or at least not in the same way. So that requires a lot of preparation. To try to like get a story out of somebody or set them up to tell a story at least, and not just repeat what's been done a million times. So, but anyway, I've enjoyed them all. I will say that one that meant a lot to me, and I was talking earlier about how much I love Larry Hama. And so when I was able to interview him, that meant a lot. And I would also say it meant a lot to get to interview Stan Lee. That one was also one that was, because he's legendary, whatever you think of him. So it was short, but it was a big deal. It was a big deal. Interview me. It'd be entertaining. I guarantee it. See, but I get those requests all the time, Steve. You're adding to my stress. But you gave me $2, so it's okay. We're cool. Anyway, I guess that's about everything I've got to talk about tonight. I had a good time chatting with all of you and talking about comics this week. I'm trying to think of what comes out this week for comics. I feel like it's a smaller week for me. Let me look at the calendar. It might be a 5th week. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not. It's the 1st of July, so it's not a 5th week, but it's smaller. It's on this channel. It's on this channel. Look up either the interview playlist or just Comic Tropes After Dark, Stan Lee. It's short, and it's from quite a while back now. It's only about 10 minutes long. But yeah, I got to interview Stan Lee. It's from quite a while back now. It was audio only, so I've just added an image for it. It was audio. All right. Yep. It's time to go. Oh, I'll say this. Excuse me. For the Jaws manga that I discuss in my latest episode, I didn't want to try to scan all these pages because I honestly worried it could damage the manga a little too much to try to put it on a flat bed or scanner. So I came up with something. It probably won't look quite as good as all images, but I put it under my camera that I show you my reviews with. Put it on perfect resolution, and just slowly looked at each page so that I could then grab that moment of footage and if I needed to, I could freeze frame or zoom in or out. And so that's how I decided to do it for this Jaws manga, just so that I hopefully don't really damage this book. It's already, it's from 1975. It's like over 50 years old now. The glue isn't bad, but it's also not great. But that does mean I realized after I did it that I sort of have a read-through, or I have a video of a read-through. I mean, so I'm giving a little thought to, as a Patreon exclusive, I can't do it right away because it'll take a little time, but I'm giving some thought to translating a bunch of it and doing a read-through of it as like a dedicated video. Because I sort of, I'm analyzing this, but I'm comparing it to other Shark comics. So I'm not doing a read-through. That's generally not what interests me, the sort of comic story and type of videos. But because I've already recorded it and because most people can't come across it, maybe that would be kind of a fun extra. I don't think I'd release it as a main episode because that's not what I do. But I'm just letting you know I'm giving some thought to creating that as like a Patreon exclusive video. Is just sort of like I'd add voiceover where I'm translating the pages or explaining them. We'll see. It's something I'm thinking about, but it might take more work than I'm even thinking, so it might take a while to create that. It's just an idea that came to me after I recorded it all. I was like, I do now have a video of looking at each page. Maybe that would be interesting. Yeah, instead of translating it, just play the Baby Shark song to the whole thing. Absolutely. No, not Tonkabon size. No, this isn't pulling together like pages from like a weekly or a monthly magazine. This is like a full book that was made to promote the movie in 75 so that like the local audiences might want to go see it in theaters there. I haven't read it, but I'm pretty sure I talked about Knights in the news maybe a couple months ago because I know they're making like an animated version of it, I believe, if I'm thinking of the right book. Anyway, sorry, that was a last minute thing that popped into my head to talk about. But I should go. I really need to do number one. All this coffee has gone through me. But I should also have some sort of a dinner. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the night editing so that I can get this episode done this week and get it out to you in time. I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys. And I'll tell you something. I haven't done this in a while, but you deserve it. Everybody watching right now, double salute. Can't give it every week. Otherwise, it's not special. But you earned it. So again, this week, double salute. All right. Take care of each other. Peace and love. and keep reading comics. Bye, everyone.